Hello, say chat up. What can you do with that persistent problem in your life? We're talking about the problem that no matter how hard you try, you can never solve. Regardless of what your problem is, you don't need more information to solve the issue, you just need the right information. You need to be clear about the problem and use only the information that is relevant to your specific case. To be clear about the problem and collect the relevant information, you can use a four-step process that has been used for centuries to solve the biggest questions in human history. This process is the scientific method, and the four steps are: observe, formulate hypotheses, test the hypothesis, and analyze the results. Now think for a moment. What is the most persistent problem that you face? What is that goal that you would very much like to achieve, but no matter how hard you try, you never achieve the expected result? It might be that for years you have tried to lose weight and have not succeeded. You may have tried to learn everything, to learn a new language, and never got out of the basics. It may even be that you have a relationship problem with a family member or a friend that you just can't solve it. The scientific method can be the solution to all these endless problems. But this solution will require two things. First, that you stop making random attempts to solve the problem. Second, that you start doing arranged actions as if you were a scientist of yourself. Stop trying to solve all your problems at random. Adopt a method so that you can try to find the best possible solution. We tend to think of scientists as very intelligent people who use incomprehensible systems to solve very difficult problems. But the truth is that being a scientist has nothing to do with using systems that are out of your reach or having very crazy ideas. Instead, science is a method for finding the solution to a problem by making the best possible decision. For example, when scientists are trying to find the cure for a disease, they don't work at random without criteria, without a method. Instead of that, they follow a ritual that is known as the scientific method. The scientific method is nothing more than a set of basic rules for carrying out an experiment. And this experiment helps to produce new knowledge or to improve existing knowledge. And there are some variations and ways to try to apply the method, but basically it goes through four stages: observation, hypothesis, experimentation, and analysis of the results. Now, imagine what would be possible to solve in your life if you applied this same method to solve your big problems. Imagine you stopped looking for solutions in a disorganized way, without planning, and you started to follow a ritual that has helped actually to solve all kinds of problems that you can imagine. The scientific method is a procedure that will help you to always make the best possible solution. And the first step in solving any problem is observation. Be clear about the problem that you want to solve. The scientific method starts by observing the problem. At this stage, the scientist simply observes a matter, a phenomenon of nature, or anything else that they want to study. In your case, you should look at the problem that has been bothering you for the longest time and apparently you cannot solve. That is, you need to have a very well-defined goal. For example, let's say you are overweight, you have tried several diets and exercises, but you never lost weight as you would like. You have also never managed to maintain weight after these diets. So this is a problem to be noted. To solve this problem, you don't need to have more information about diets and exercises. You're probably tired of the amount of the information you have already consumed when you're trying to solve that problem. What you need is the right information, the relevant information to solve your specific case. Ask the right questions to find the best solution to your problem. Asking the wrong questions will only make you find the wrong answers. Our brain often behaves like an answering questions machine. You put a question on one side and the answer comes on the other side. The problem is that if you ask the wrong question, you will probably find the wrong answers. Therefore, you don't necessarily need more information about your problem. What you need is higher quality information. You need to find the right information to solve your issue. The quality of the questions you ask when you're looking at the problem will define the quality of the answers you will get. Your results are directly linked to the quality of your questions. Now let's return to our example of weight loss, which I'll use throughout our conversation. Have you ever stopped to ask yourself why you can't lose weight permanently? An example of a right question would be, why haven't I managed to lose weight once and for all? This question is honest because it assumes you have not yet solved the problem, but it makes clear that there is a way to achieve that goal. An example of a wrong question would be, why am I never gonna be able to lose weight? This question is wrong because it assumes you will not be able to solve the problem. Tony Robbins has an example that I find pretty interesting. When someone asks him how many times he or she should be trying to solve a particular problem before giving up, this is what he says. How many times would you let your child try to walk before giving up? And of course, people answer that they would never give up, that the child would try to walk until he succeeds, no matter how many times he falls to the ground. And that is the answer, the formula for success to solve the problem. Try until you succeed. Do not try at random, but try to follow a method, as we're doing here. If you have problems that you cannot solve, formulate several solution hypotheses and test each one of them. You'll surely find the answer. And after you have asked the right questions, the next step in the method is to formulate hypotheses. That is, to imagine answers to those questions you have asked. Why haven't I managed to lose weight once and for all? It is a question that opens space for several hypotheses. Is it because my genetics are bad? Because I was never consistent with the diet? Is it because I never went on a low-carb diet with whole foods? Is it because I did not exercise? Is it because I didn't have a follow-up by a good nutritionist? Is it because I take some prescription medicine that prevents me from losing weight? And at this stage, the best thing to do is to write down everything that comes to your mind when you're answering the question that you're asking. Set your mind free. Think of non-obvious ways to solve a problem as if you were brainstorming. And after you've run out of your list of possible answers, go back and analyze each answer with a more critical eye. Is this answer correct? How likely is that? With that critical eye, organize your list of hypotheses in order of priority. At this point, you should focus on data, facts, scientific evidence. First, list the hypotheses that you think are the most likely to be the solution to your problem, and then list the others in a particular order. This is important because in this order, this is how you're going to follow the experimentation stage. In other words, don't try to solve the problem at random without organization. Remember now, you're a scientist yourself. Never give up on solving a personal problem until you have tested all the hypotheses. If you still can't solve it, it's because you haven't experienced enough. Now it is time for you to get your hands dirty. The time for experimentation has come. For this third step of the scientific method, you will take each of the hypotheses that you formulated in the previous step, and you're going to test them one by one in an ordered way, analyzing your actions and your results over a predetermined period of time. For example, let's say that you listed as the most likely hypothesis to solve your obesity problem the answer, because I never ate a low-carb diet with whole foods. And then you will define that over the next 30 days, you will carefully try a low-carb diet with whole foods prescribed by a nutritionist that you trust. And if at the end of that testing period you have reached your viable weight loss goal for this period, well, congratulations, you can validate the hypothesis. Throughout the trial period, you will need to take notes, and these notes will help you to be sure of what you're doing. This way, when you're analyzing the results, you will be able to look at your notes and you're going to know exactly what you did. So write down every day all the actions that you're taking to solve the problem in that testing period. You can get a diary and write down everything for yourself. You can film yourself with your cell phone camera, documenting everything that you're doing every single day. You can even post in social networks, basically documenting your journey. The important thing is that now you have a tool to record all the actions taken, as this will be important for the last step of the method, the analysis of the results. Analyze the results of your actions with the rigor of a scientist. Only then you can accept or discard solutions for solving the biggest problems of your life. After finishing your trial period with the first hypothesis, now you're gonna need to analyze your results, and there are two possible paths here. Either the test was successful and you did find the answer to your problem, or the test was not successful and you need to test the next hypothesis. At this stage, there is a big difference between the method used by science and this adaptation that we're making here for your personal problem. See, in the scientific method, the solution must always be true for the same group of people under the same conditions. But in this personal adaptation, the solution must work for you. For example, there's probably no evidence that something crazy like the moon diet works based on scientific evidence. But let's say that in your case, you tested the moon diet and it helped you to reach your long-term goal of weight loss. The moon diet works for you, you tested it, you did reach your goal and it didn't damage your health. So it doesn't really matter if it doesn't work for other people. What matters is that it helped you to solve a problem that you had a long time ago. A strength solution that works in practice is much better than a supposedly perfect solution in theory that does not really work in practice. This is just an example to illustrate the principle to be used in reasoning. Ideally, you should start testing your hypotheses according to the greatest probability that they have of working. And the hypotheses that are most likely to work are those that have already worked for other people, those in which there is already a literature, successful cases, scientific evidence. However, not everything works for everyone. That is why you have to be your own scientist, observing your problems, asking the right questions, formulating and putting your hypothesis in order, experimenting with each one, and analyzing what does and does not work for you. Those who fail to plan are planning to fail. In this conversation, you discovered how to plan to solve the most persistent problems in your life using a method that has already been tested and approved for decades and continues to solve the greatest questions of humanity. And the best thing is that using this method, you will never have failures. With each hypothesis tested and discarded, you will only learn ways of how not to solve your problem. And sooner or later, you will find the solution you're looking for. With the right planning, you can have the life you always wanted to have. Just put everything on paper and act in an orderly manner, following a method to get you from where you are today to the point where you want to get to. And if you're interested in such a plan, now I invite you to attend a special class of the Planning Your Life course accessing right now at ato.se/planning your life.